Hi everyone, this is Sandra and thank you again for tuning in to another Journey to Authentic Living video. And if you're not subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe by clicking the red button, and please do share with friends and family and anybody who you think can benefit from this video and our message. So let me grab my microphone, because I have to tell you that this is my second attempt to make this video. And for some reason, the last one I recorded, which actually was pretty good because I had some inspiration, didn't record, and I just noticed that. And I don't have a lot of juice in my computer, and I'm outside and it's so gorgeous, and I don't want to go inside and record this. So let me pull up what I wanted to talk about, and let's see if I can if I can feel inspired as well to share more information from the video that was not recorded. So I wrote a blog and I decided to create a video from it. And I started out with an Einstein quote that says, "The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know." And Einstein's quote applies to, at least for me, this quote applies to all aspects of life. And one particular aspect I've been applying this quote towards is myself, my healing, my personal development. Because through the years and as I age, I realize, non-judgmentally, key word, non-judgmentally, realize that there is always an aspect of us to heal, some nuance of an issue to resolve, some trigger to be reviewed, right? And it's kind of like a piece to a puzzle, you know, connecting to the other pieces. And it's interesting because I think even Aristotle said something about knowledge. You know, the more I know, or the more knowledge I gain, the more I realize I don't know anything. I think something like that, the gist of it. I think Einstein was kind of saying the same thing. And a couple of weeks ago, I found myself I found this sort of inner critic kind of coming up, you know, saying, "Okay, Sandra, you know, you're a middle-aged woman. You've been in personal development since your teen years. And here you are with a problem, with an issue that has persisted, or that is still coming up for you." Now, the problem, how should I say this? The way it comes up is different. It doesn't come up always exactly the same, right? Because in a problem, you can imagine, you know, there are pieces, there are different aspects, there's different layers, if you will, the superficial, you know, you can go in depth and so forth. And so I didn't really remain with that inner critic, but I did find myself, you know. So that's why now, after a couple weeks later, you know, I was thinking about that. And I thought, okay, but non-judgmentally now, I'm realizing that the more I learn about myself, it's not like I don't know anything, but it's like I'm still learning. I'm still learning aspects to my personality, to who I am, when I'm conditioned, when I'm not conditioned. And I think this is important to share with all of you as well, sort of my experience. You know, and I don't know a lot of people out there. I don't know if Tony Robbins and Stephen Covey, who, when he was alive, Jack Cornfield, or, you know, Byron Katie, and all these people that teach and train, and all my colleagues, you know, nobody's perfect. I think that we all have something that we need to work on. Okay. So personal development is a lifelong journey. And like I said, since I've been on it since a teenager, experimenting with different strategies and therapies and, reaching keener levels of awareness, all for the desire to make that internal transformation. And to make those transformations needed to gain more well-being and to overcome suffering, right? And to also sort of overcome the sins of the father, if you will. Now, my interpretation of sins of the father, I know it's kind of a Judeo-Christian thing or biblical thing, is not to really beat anyone up or to discriminate against fathers, by the way. I know we're very PC lately, so but I don't want to tread lightly, because this channel is about being authentic. And so it's, I'm not here deliberately to offend anyone or to marginalize mothers or fathers or what have you. But to me, that sins of the father is a reminder that it's kind of like genetics, right? We know that our DNA goes back. We even do those tests now, the ancestry.com and things. I'm 10% African and I'm 50% French and I'm whatever, I mean, why are we so curious for those things? And yet we disengage or avoid or ignore the fact that we can inherit some negative habits and some negative conditioning, or conditioning, shall we say, that is not beneficial to our growth or to our person in this moment. And then add on top of that our fears and our insecurities and so forth, and our conditioning and our influences that we have with other people. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? And it is. So you can see why I like this phrase. You can see why, here I am, this middle-aged woman. I've been doing my work, my self-growth, inner growth, and, whether it was through, it went through stages, right? It went through religious stages to glean benefit, perhaps. Then it went to, like I said, through different religions, through psychology, through, I was exposed to people like Terry Cole Whitaker. I saw her live many times as a child. Wayne Dyer, before he became really super popular, he was a big person in our life. Professor Leo Buscaglia. I mean, these are great people who really try to inspire. I did inspire people, but inspire people to bring a different type of awareness to self in order to then be a better person, if you will, to others as well. Okay, so I'm going through all this and I'm thinking, yeah, here I am. And it's like, oh boy, there's another aspect of myself that is being uncovered, or another, oh, I thought I resolved this problem and here I am with this pattern again. So as I'm speaking to you now, I'm processing all of this. And I want to make it okay for all of you to know that even if you have been on your personal development, or you've been to therapy, or you've done that, or you've used all kinds of strategies, you are a human being. And being human is being perfectly imperfect. And we don't have to know everything, or we don't have to be reassured or assured. That's the way I want to say it. We always want, we want to know. We have to know because we have an uneasiness. We have a restlessness inside of ourselves. And there are a lot of people that use logic. I know quite a bit of logical people out there. I'm not saying that logic doesn't have its place. It certainly has its place. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I'm a very logical person. I use a lot of common sense in my life, or at least I think I do, or how I've been told. But I also have the fortune of using my right brain as well. So I listen to my body. I listen to my intuition. That part is always scary. And I think that's why logical people scoff, off the logic and the intuition, because it's so foreign to them, because it requires an individual to go in the body, to go in self, right? But being able to employ both right and left brain is a beautiful thing. And I would encourage all of you to do that. And if you're stronger in your right, learn to use your left. And if you're or vice versa. One of my teachers, Ellen Kaufman Dosick, who's right here in La Costa, and she's married to Rabbi Wayne. They were very progressive, or they are very progressive. Or he's a very progressive rabbi, and I love him, and he has all these wonderful stories to tell and so forth. And I remember one time I raised my hand, we were asking questions. This is like back in 2005 or something like that. And I was trying to get rid of my logic, because I am logical. And I was trying to get rid of that. And all these people are just, I had wonderful experiences to share that had to do with my intuition and being intuitive and all that. The problem was that at that time, somehow in my belief, it was like I wanted, I don't know what I wanted. I guess I didn't believe that I was as intuitive, maybe, as I really was. I don't know. It's kind of confusing. But I remember Ellen she has such a beautiful voice. And I remember her looking at me and kind of nodding her head. And she said, "Your logical brain, Sandra, is a beautiful thing." She goes, "You don't want to get rid of that." And like, you could hear the gasps, in this. It was a training seminar, by the way. And I remember a couple of people like, you could hear them because, she wasn't confirming the typical New Age stuff. So logic is beautiful, right? We want to employ it when possible. But when it comes to personal development, for all you logical people out there, there's only so much you'll arrive. In fact, you'll only arrive to the superficial, because, in your personal development, when you just employ the logic, well, it doesn't make sense. Well, of course it doesn't make sense, because it's not your logical mind that feels. If you're triggered, it's not your logical mind. It's your emotions. It's in your emotional body. There are memories, and your subconscious is recording things that your logical mind, doesn't accept, or thinks that it has control or can manipulate, right? And then we get into a different type of neurosis, by the way, when you are very logical, right? Now, sorry to pick on those of you who are logical. Now I'm going to go to the ones that are more woo-woo and things. Wonderful. I mean, being in your right brain, it's being creative, it's going with the flow, it's, all of these things, right? That's beautiful. And there's a time and place to be that, to do that, and to be it. But you also don't want to lose common sense. I know a lot of woo-woo people that are just way up in the ethers, and they're just never quite grounded. And, you sometimes get this flutter feeling because you think you're going to fly away with them when you talk to them. You're just like, it feels like a balloon, and so again, time and place for all that, in my opinion. You don't have to be either or. Why not embrace both, right? We want to try to not be extreme. So all of this plays a part with the fact of being comfortable with knowing that you can know, you can have knowledge, you can have talents, and you can be good at some languages, and you can draw and paint and be a wonderful guitar player at the same time, and as what they would call the Renaissance man or the Renaissance woman, and everyone's just like throwing themselves at you because they want the gifts that you have. Well, that's great, that's lovely, and you're a blessed person if you have all that. But it doesn't mean that you don't have problems, right? And it doesn't mean that we stop growing and that we stop learning about ourselves, right? So this is really about us. This video is really about the process, because the lifelong journey is a process that leads not solely to self-transformation, but also leads to additional awareness, of what I would call additional selves, that live within us, that require some form of intention. So our triggers and our suffering and so-called idiosyncrasies are paramount to what hasn't been resolved within ourselves. And we can see that within our relationships when we're triggered by people. And so my question to you is, how do you relate to people? What kind of relationships do you have? And what kind of a relationship do you have with yourself? That's really important, because the kind of relationship you have with yourself, I feel, and I'm really understanding it a lot more on a deeper level, is key to my relationships with other people. Because every time I have a trigger, which is always a memory and doesn't always relate to the person in front of us, remember, perception is what really dominates us. So if we have an erroneous perception or distorted perception about someone or something, if we do, right, and we're triggered, that's about us. Now, again, I want to say here a sidebar here. I'm not condoning abuse. I'm not saying that people can't be asses or say something rude. I'm not saying that at all. Everybody's got their problem, right? But it's the way that, and it's not just the way we respond, because I don't want to sound like one of those again. Oh, it's the way even though that is true, I don't want to say that to you. It's like reverberating everybody else saying that. Yes, there is some truth to that. But how are we holding on to that trigger? How are we holding on to what that rude person said to us? We may feel okay or better when we say, well, that's about them. That's not about me. Well, okay, that's part of it, but you're still holding on to it. I'm still holding on to it. I need to take a look at myself and say, what is that? Who does that remind me of? Is there a memory of that? And then try to shift it, because again, our subconscious is what runs the show. And no matter how logical you are, it's not going to resolve it. You can't control it, because the more we try to control, and I've done it too in the past when I was learning how to respond, this whole thing, not to react, but to respond. Okay, hi again, everyone. So there was this really long pause. I couldn't get my computer to get more juice, so I might have to pause this again. But what I wanted to say is that when I was learning to respond in a different way, right? Because if you're not taught how to respond, if you don't have a parent that's a therapist, or I don't know, this guru at home, you don't always have the coping skills or the skills, interpersonal skills, to know how to respond. So you either retreat or you lash out, withdraw or so forth. So what I meant was that when I was learning what that meant to respond, through psychology, through spirituality and all that good stuff, it feels very controlled, right? And that's why sometimes the logic, you can't always have control over everything. Your personal development, it might be a little bit mechanical, through your logic or whatever it is you feel that might be, but our personal development is not just plain logical. So I'm going to change a little bit. I'm going to end this this video here, because for some reason I'm having a lot of challenges trying to record this video, and I don't really want to go off too much of a tangent as to not confuse you more. Going back to Einstein's quote, I just feel that it's so important to have that humility, to understand that just because we are, on our personal development journey, and just because we think we know all these things or about ourselves, it's a learning process. We're always learning something about ourselves. It's not a what's the word? It's not stagnant. It's not something that just we can we just know everything about ourselves. We're constantly learning. And that's really the key point to all of this. And I encourage all of you to persist. I encourage all of you to continue uncovering and discovering and coming with a sense of curiosity about yourself and who you are more and more in you know, outside of the family realm and of all the conditioning, and just be patient with yourself. And yeah, you know, there is some suffering associated to it, but you bring in a gift. Each of us brings in a beautiful, unique gift. And that's something you can't control. That's something that you can't, yeah, you can't control it. You don't even know what your gift is sometimes. I don't even know what my gifts are. Sometimes when I overcome something, I have a strength and a stamina and an emotional intelligence that I surprise myself with. And so it's a process. There's no destination. At least that's the way I experience this personal development. Okay, so I hope this video, when I put it forth, is not going to be too choppy and too weird. But again, love you logical people and love you woo-woo people. And let's all be happy together and let's employ both of our brains and unite and really uh, make ourselves, learn to love ourselves. That's really the key to it all. Okay. So love the Einstein quote, and I hope you can apply this as well to other areas of your life. All right, everyone, have a good one. Encouraging you to live authentically. Many blessings. You take care.